Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story with you this morning. In case we haven't met, my name is Cleopas. That Cleopas. My story is found toward the end of Luke's gospel. I was one of the earliest followers of Jesus. I was not one of the 12, but I was there. I first met Jesus early in his ministry on one of his first trips to Jerusalem for one of the religious festivals that I always attended. While he was there, he met a man who had been lame for 38 years at the pool of Bethesda and healed him. And this man who had not been able to walk for almost 40 years was walking through the streets, and word began to spread like wildfire about what had happened that day. About this rabbi from Galilee who had healing in his hands and who did it on the Sabbath, willing to stand up against the Pharisees. When I heard this, I had to find this guy, this prophet named Jesus of Nazareth. And I found him in the temple courts where he regularly was during the festivals. A group was around him and he was teaching, and I stood there in awe at what he had to say, how powerful his words were, how full of grace his words were. In fact, what impacted me most about Jesus wasn't his power as much as it was his compassion and his willingness to stand up to the religious rules of our day. He healed on the Sabbath. And he stood against the Pharisees who were known for laying rule upon us, making us feel almost hopeless in trying to follow God. That day, I became a follower of Jesus. And although I wasn't with him all the time, whenever he was in my area, I made sure I was where he was. It was my custom as a faithful Jew to be in Jerusalem for all of the required festivals, and Jesus was always there too. My favorite festival was Passover. I never missed a Passover. And whenever I went to Passover after meeting Jesus, I made sure I found him. And I listened to him. And a few times, I even got to talk to him. And every time I met him after that first time I talked to him, he remembered my name. Out of all the people he would see all year long, he would see me in the crowd. He'd say, "Hey, Cleopas, how you doing?" Man, that made me feel good. I'll be up front with you. It came to the place in my life where I looked forward to Passover more because of Jesus, and he was going to be there, than anything else that was going on that week. Until that last Passover, when everything went wrong. Nothing went the way it was supposed to that weekend. I remember being awakened that Friday morning. A commotion was in the street, almost like a riot breaking out. And I ran out of the place where I was staying, and I followed the crowd up to the Praetorium. And I saw something there that I'll never be able to forget, even though I want to. I saw Jesus, beaten and bloodied. A crown of thorns pressed into his skull, being forced to carry a Roman cross to the place where they would execute him. I followed, like many of his followers, at a distance. And I stood far enough off to be sure that I would not be counted as one of his followers because I was afraid the same thing might happen to me. I stood there that day and I watched everything that happened. I watched as the Roman soldiers drove nails into his hands and feet, as they raised that cross and dropped it into a hole. And I stood and watched. Part of me wanted to draw closer, but I was frozen by fear, and I stayed where I was. Close enough to hear his cries, close enough to see his pain, but far enough away to be safe. I stood there all day with others, and I watched. I watched Jesus die. And when Jesus died, my hope died with him. I really thought he was the one. I was sure he was the Messiah. But now he was dead. And I didn't know what to think. That Sunday morning, I was awakened again. This time by news from a group of women who were also followers of Jesus, who had gone to his tomb that morning to properly prepare his body for burial. And they claimed that when they got there, the stone, all 3,000 pounds of it that covered the tomb door, had been moved away. And the tomb was empty. They claimed they were visited by angels who told them that Jesus wasn't there, but that Jesus was alive. And they came back and they were telling us this, but none of it made sense. I was confused. And so I decided that same day that the best thing I could do would be just to go back home to Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. Because when you're confused and you're hurting and you don't know what to think, you just want to go home. I started walking back home, and a friend of mine, another follower of Jesus, was with me, and he would prefer me not share his name. And we were walking together, and as we were walking, we were discussing everything. We talked about all the things Jesus had said, all the things Jesus had done. We talked about that Passover week, how Jesus rode in to Jerusalem on a donkey to much fanfare, how he cleansed the temple, all the teaching we had heard that week, and then what all went down Friday. We talked about the women and what they'd had to say, and we were just trying our best to make sense out of it. During our walk, another man walked up. I have no idea where he came from. I guess we were just so consumed in our conversation, we didn't notice that he was behind us. And my best guess is he heard our conversation, was curious, caught up, and he began talking too. And when he caught up to us, the first thing he did was he asked a question. He said, "What is this you guys are talking about so intently?" And when he asked that question, I just stopped. I dropped my head, shook it, and I looked at him and I said, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem this past week who doesn't know what has happened over these last few days?" And this stranger looked at me and he kind of shrugged his shoulders and he said, "What happened?" So I began to tell him. A man named Jesus of Nazareth. We considered him a prophet with healing in his hands. He taught like no one had ever taught before. He had favor with God. He had favor with all the people. But our chief priests and our leaders didn't like him, were threatened by him. And so they had him arrested and turned over to the Romans and condemned to die. And on Friday, they crucified him. We really thought that he was the one, the Messiah, who would redeem Israel. But he's dead. And then this morning, some women followers of his went to the tomb and they came back claiming that the stone was rolled away and the tomb was empty and that they were visited by angels who had told them Jesus was alive. And two of Jesus' other followers, Peter and John, ran down and looked at it. And yes, the tomb was empty, but they didn't see any sign of Jesus. We don't know what to think. And so we're just going home. None of this makes sense. The man looked at me as I was talking. And when I finished, he looked me in the eye. He smiled. And he said, "Do you not understand what was written by your own prophets?" Then he said, "You're being a little thick-headed and slow-hearted. Now, I don't know about you, but where I come from in Emmaus, when a stranger calls you thick-headed, those are fighting words. I was about ready to throw hands. But there was something very disarming about the way he said it. There was no hatred. There was no vitriol. It wasn't sharp at all. It was like he was pointing out something that maybe I should have seen all along. And then he said, "Do you not understand that according to the prophets, the Messiah must first suffer and then enter into his glory?" And we started walking. And he kept talking. And from that point all the way home, he began to share the scriptures with us. Scriptures I had heard all my life. I grew up in synagogue. I memorized a lot of this stuff he was talking about. He began in Genesis and talked about how when God said that the serpent would bruise his heel, but he would crush the serpent's head. And that suffering was not a surprise. It was the plan of God from the beginning. He then took me to the first Passover in Exodus. And as he talked about the unblemished lamb, and as he talked about the blood on the doorposts, as he described that scene from Exodus and the children of Israel in Egyptian slavery, as he described that lamb, I saw it replaying on the cross, the lamb, the blood. And he told me that deliverance has always come through sacrifice. It was that way then, it's that way now. He took me to what you call Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? And when he said that, I heard Jesus say that on Friday. Screamed it out at the top of his voice. I thought it was the pain talking. But as this stranger began to explain the entirety of that psalm, I saw the cross. He talked about betrayal and thirst, nails piercing hands and feet, casting lots for clothing. And in that moment, a psalm that I had sung all my life took on a new meaning. I began to understand what it really meant. He took me to Isaiah, the story of the suffering servant. I'd heard that in synagogue. My parents had talked about it at home. I never understood what it meant. But as he talked about the suffering servant who was pierced for our iniquities and crushed for our transgressions, by whom stripes we are healed, it became clear, clearer and clearer. He said to me, don't you understand what Isaiah meant when he said, all we like sheep have gone astray, and every one of us have turned to our own way, but the Lord has laid upon him the iniquity of us all. The whole 7 miles, he shared these stories, and something began to happen inside of me. I began to see something I hadn't seen before. I began to understand like maybe I'd never understood before. And I began to realize that what had just taken place was something bigger than I could have ever imagined. It was late when we finally got to my house in Emmaus. And the stranger seemed to want to continue his journey to somewhere else, but my friend and I, we didn't want him to leave. And we asked him to stay, to come inside, be with us for a while. And he agreed. And we walked into my house and we sat down together at the table, the 3 of us. And there, everything slowed down. We talked. He did most of the talking. We were enthralled with everything he had to say. And then, as he was talking, he took some bread that was sitting at the table. He picked up the bread and he blessed it. And he broke it. And he reached out his hand to give me a piece. And at that moment, I saw it. I saw the nail pierce in his wrist. I saw Jesus. My heart had felt it all along. The whole trip walking with this man, I knew there was something about him. There was this burning sensation within me. I knew there was something happening, but at that moment, my eyes saw what my heart had been feeling for the last few hours. I saw Jesus. He wasn't just alive, he was in that room with us. But as soon as I recognized him, he vanished. And my friend and I looked at each other with amazement. And we both exclaimed almost at the exact same time, was not our hearts burning on the road as he was opening the scriptures up to us? An amazing moment when my eyes caught up with what my heart had known. Here's what I want you to remember about my story. There's so much. There's so much that happened in my life that day. There's so much I could keep you here all afternoon talking about. But there's one thing that really resonates in me as I think about that day, and I want you to remember. And it's this: Jesus came looking for me even as I was walking away from him. Jesus did not stay back and wait for me to figure it out, connect the dots on my own. Jesus did not avoid me during my confusion. He came looking for me, even as I was walking away from him. And he met me where I was. And he walked beside me until I realized it was him. He came looking for me. And he's looking for you too. You see, folks, the one thing I want you to understand this morning is this: Jesus is pursuing you, even when you're not pursuing him. And Jesus desires you, even though you might not be thinking much of him. And when you find him and you realize that, when your eyes finally catch up to where your heart is, you want to say to Jesus what my friend and I said to him that night: stay with us. Jesus, stay with us. Jesus, stay with me. There's some in this room today, and you need to come back to Jesus. At one time, you were walking closely with him. You can remember when you asked him into your life, what it used to be like, talking with him every day, following him, living for him. But something happened. And whatever it was that happened is inconsequential. It's different things for different people. But something happened. Like with me, something happened. And I decided to go back home. Something happened. But right now, this morning, you feel something. There's a burning in your heart. There's a tingling inside of you. That's not me. I can't make that happen. It's Jesus saying to you, I want you back. I want you back to where we were. And maybe for you, the best thing you could do right now is just simply say, Jesus, stay with me. There's some here, and you've never given your life to him. This is all new to you. You've been exploring Jesus and trying to get to know a little bit about him, and you've been seeking out the faith and trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong, and you're not really sure about some things, but right now in your heart there's something happening, and you can't deny it. It's real. It's Jesus saying to you, come to me and trust me. And for you this morning, if you've never taken that step of faith, the greatest thing you could do is kind of like what my friend and I did that night at my home. Stay with us. But for you, it kind of goes like this. Jesus, I give you my life. And today, I'm trusting you to forgive me of my sin and to give me a new start. Don't walk away from what you're sensing right now. Don't walk away from the one who has come looking for you. He desires you. He desires to give you a new life, to give you real life, to give you a fresh start, to give you eternal life. The greatest decision I ever made in my life was that day at my house when I said to the stranger, stay with us. And the greatest decision you'll make in your life is when you say to the one who is at your heart's door right now, come in and stay with me. I trust you. Let's bow for prayer. Today, if you're here and you're coming back to Jesus, or you've never trusted Jesus, but you feel like something is going on in your life right now, hear me carefully. That's Jesus pursuing you. Even though you might not have come in here pursuing him, he's pursuing you. He has so much more for you. So much more for you. And I would invite you to quietly say yes to him in this moment. To quietly say what I said to him. Stay with me. Stay with me. In fact, what I would like to do right now is lead you through a prayer. And I believe there are many in this room who want to pray this prayer with me. Some are coming back to God. Some are we're giving our lives to Jesus for the first time. But I would ask, if I could be so bold, everyone in this room, everyone, just to give courage and encouragement to those who really need to pray this prayer. I would ask everyone in this room to out loud pray this prayer after me. Jesus, something is stirring in me. I don't have all the answers, but I believe you're drawing near. Stay with me. Forgive me for the ways that I've sinned and gone my own way. Today, I give you my life. Today, I'm trusting you to forgive me, to lead me, to change me, to stay close to me. Today I choose to follow you. Amen. Do you receive that this morning? Amen.